The Citroën C5 name has been around since the year 2000, but until now it had only been used on saloons and estates. Such is the trend, the name is back on an SUV to give us this, the Citroën C5 Aircross. It's a bold looking all new SUV based on the Peugeot 5008. But what's it like? That's what we're going to find out. And remember, if you want to buy a new car, go to whatcar.com and head to the new car buying section on our site, because there you can browse through our list of deals from our trusted dealer network. And please subscribe to our channel because we're going to be doing loads of videos in the future. So you can see on the outside that the C5 Aircross draws heavily on the design of Citroën's other SUV, which is the C3 Aircross. So you have these air bump bulges on the lower sills here, and generally the whole look of the car is pretty interesting when you compare it to its rivals that are all pretty run-of-the-mill in the design department. And inside, it's fairly interesting and nice too, just like the outside. So you've got a nice mix of materials with this faux leather on the dash and also some gloss black trims. But it's not all good news because there are quite a few hard, cheap plastics on show as well. This infotainment system is one that we're very much used to. It's in all of Citroën and Peugeot's latest products, and it continues to frustrate. So the reasons for that are it has a very complicated menu layout and there's lots of sub-menus and it's not very intuitive. It's not really as easy to use as a smartphone like the best infotainment systems. You have got these shortcut buttons, but there's absolutely no feedback to them. So they're touch sensitive, but you don't know when you touch them or not. So it's difficult to use them on the move as well. But the most frustrating thing of all is having the climate controls within the touchscreen. So it's much easier when you've got physical dials that you can just turn easily to change the temperature. Unfortunately, on this system, you've got to go into the touchscreen and hope that you hit the right place to make it warmer or colder.
The standard 12.3-inch digital driver display is very useful. It's clear and bright and you can configure it to show what you want too.
Space up front is good. The car has a tall, boxy shape, and so that means that there's plenty of headroom and there's a lot of adjustability in the driving position as well. So the steering wheel moves in and out with a good range of adjustment, and the seats are easily adjusted too. You've also got some decent storage options. So on the center console here, open this up and you have an enormous cubby hole. And another helpful feature in this is that there's a light at the bottom of it. So even in the dark, when you are certain that you've lost your keys, hopefully that will help you find them. In front of that, you've got two cup holders. And then in front of this, next to the gear selector, you have a big storage area for either a massive phone or a wallet or your keys again. And in front of that, there's another tray with a USB port and a 12-volt socket. And the door bins, they are a bit shallow, but they're still big enough to fit a bottle of water in. Space in the back isn't quite so generous. Legroom is decent, it's similar to what you get in a CX-5, but a Honda CR-V and Hyundai Santa Fe both offer more. Headroom is good, but the roof lining kind of slopes down quite dramatically, so it means when you're sat on these outer two rear seats, it's quite close to your head, which can get a bit annoying after a while. But the room itself is impressive. However, if you do go for a sunroof, then it will dramatically cut into the headroom available. Undoubtedly, the best thing about the rear seats is the amount of adjustability that each one has. So you can recline them and you can also slide each one forwards and back individually. And that's a great feature that's rare on cars in this class. As for the boot, well, it's not the biggest in the class, but it's also not far off. So to put that into context, it's roughly the same size and shape as a Peugeot 5008 and a Honda CR-Vs. You should be able to get 9 carry-on size suitcases into the boot of the C5 Aircross without any trouble, and that's an impressive number. Being tall and square with a large, long load bay, especially when the rear seats are down, means that you get a very practical, usable space in the back of the C5 Aircross. And also because of this wide opening, putting big, bulky items in should be easy compared to its competitors. Especially when you put this up against the CX-5, that Mazda has a much smaller boot.
One omission is that there are no handy levers by the boot opening for lowering the split rear seats. You have to open the rear doors and pull the relevant levers instead.
But what's the C5 Aircross like to live with? And how much does it cost to run? Well, these are the key things that you need to know about buying and owning a C5 Aircross. The Citroën C5 Aircross is competitively priced against rivals like the Mazda CX-5 and Skoda Kodiaq. And in fact, compared to a Honda CR-V, it's quite a bargain. PCP finance deals are competitive too, cheaper than many of its rivals. The C5 Aircross is also close to the top of the class with fuel efficiency. The 1.6 petrol in particular is impressive, judging by the trip computer. And CO2 emissions are pretty low across the range, which is great for company car drivers. There are 3 trims to choose from, but we think entry-level feel makes most sense. An infotainment system, rear parking sensors, automatic lights and wipers, dual-zone climate control and 17-inch alloys all come as standard. It's too early to have specific reliability information on the C5 Aircross, but Citroën as a brand finished 25th out of 31 manufacturers in our latest reliability survey. That's below rivals like Mazda, Honda, Skoda, Hyundai and Kia, and it's also one place below sister brand Peugeot, which isn't great.
You do get a 2-year unlimited mileage warranty from Citroën at least, and an additional year's cover provided by the dealer. But both Kia and Hyundai's 7 and 5-year cover respectively soundly beats that.
The C5 Aircross got the full 5-star safety rating from Euro NCAP and gets plenty of active safety features too. It also gets a camera on the windscreen that acts kind of like a dash cam, so it records and saves footage from an accident. But if you don't want it on, you can turn it off if you prefer. You have a choice of 4 engines in the C5 Aircross. That's 2 petrols and 2 diesels, and it's pretty easy to get your head around it. That's because in the petrols you have the choice of a 1.2 litre with 128 brake horsepower, and you also have a 1.6 which has 178 brake horsepower. Now the diesels have exactly the same power output but different engine capacities. So for them you can choose between a 1.5 and a 2 litre. For the petrols, the 1.2 might sound a little underpowered for an SUV on paper, but it's an engine we've driven before in the Peugeot 5008, and it's really impressed us. That same engine in the C5, where the car is lighter, feels even more impressive. So 2 cars side by side with exactly the same engine, actually the C5 just feels even punchier, and the engine pulls really well below 2000 RPM. If you go up to the 1.6, then it is genuinely very impressive. That's the car we're driving today, and it has loads of low down grunt and is pretty quick. But it's more expensive, so we can understand if you did stick with the 1.2. But this 1.6 is impressive compared to other petrol engines on offer in this class. So when you look at the Mazda CX-5, which has a naturally aspirated 2-litre petrol, then this 1.6 is much zippier than that.
You get solid performance in the 1.5 litre diesel, but it needs to be worked pretty hard and offers a disappointing lack of torque at low revs. The 2 litre diesel is much more powerful. If you're planning on lugging around lots of stuff lots of the time, this engine could be your best bet.
As for ride comfort, the C5 is the softest car in the class, and as part of the advanced comfort package, it gets what's called progressive hydraulic cushions on each shock absorber, and they help settle the suspension and offer a pillow soft ride. So when you're travelling at speed on the motorway, it really is like lying back in a really comfy hammock. But on bumpy British B roads like this, a tall body and soft springs means that there's quite a lot of side-to-side movement, so after a while that can get a bit irritating. Now, you can probably guess what's coming next. The price you pay for that sponge-like ride quality is a car that is some way behind the best in the class for handling. So, the steering, it's feather light, which is fine around town if you're doing lots of tight manoeuvres in a car park, but when you're at speed, you don't get any extra weight in it, so it just feels really vague, especially around the straight ahead.
The body roll is truly epic, and not in a good way. Turn into a bend with any kind of speed and you lean over like the Tower of Pisa. If you enjoy driving gently, then none of this will be a problem, but the 5008 and CX-5 deliver a lot more driver enjoyment.
But the C5 Aircross offers a really impressive level of refinement. So at motorway speeds and around town, it is very quiet in the interior. And that's especially impressive when you compare it to noisier rivals like the Mazda CX-5 and Toyota RAV4, both of which have much more wind and road noise. So, the C5 Aircross doesn't do sharp handling, it's not quite big enough to match the very best in class for practicality, nor does it offer 7 seats. But don't overlook this car if those limitations don't worry you, because the C5 Aircross has a lot of other things going for it. The ride is superb on most roads, it's very quiet inside, and it has a very reasonable list price matched with decent running costs. So for much more on the C5 Aircross, including our extended written review of it and every other rival around, then go to whatcar.com. And remember, if you do want to buy this car or any other new car, when you're on our website, go to the new car buying section, and when you're there, you can browse through our list of deals from trusted dealers. And please subscribe to our channel because we've got loads more videos coming up. If you've enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you've got any questions about the car, then please leave a comment.